So many amazing memories of Rudy here in Palm Springs. How many of you remember seeing him riding down Palm Canyon in a convertible for gay pride?
In a Rolls Royce.
In a Rolls Royce.
I think it was a Bentley.
One of my favorite stories that Rudy used to share, and actually Roger West from Little Shrimp brought it up. He said when Rudy first started working for us, he was driving a Volkswagen. That's because Rudy was half the size then. Rudy once told me a story of that Volkswagen when he had to work at a bar in Santa Monica and made the wrong turn and found himself driving down the Santa Monica Pier with no brakes. He just kept turning the wheel and hoping it turned before he got to the end of the pier. Rudy loved his cars. He had quite a collection over the years. One of his favorites was one that was left to him, and his heart knew no bounds. His generosity allowed the car to go to somebody else where it can be admired by thousands and thousands of visitors every year. One of his closest friends for many years was the beautiful and lovely Christine Jorgensen. When she passed away, she left him his or her old Cadillac with no muffler. He talks loudly because he knows. Rudy said that this thing coming up a hill, and when he was contacted by the people that had put together the Christine Jorgensen Museum and Memorial Museum overseas in Sweden, Rudy said, "I've got her car, would you like to have it?" They said, "Seriously?" Rudy said, "Absolutely. It was Christine's, it needs to be shared with the world." And he sent it overseas. That's the kind of man Rudy was. He shared things with everybody. He gave his heart, he gave his love, he gave his talent. Rudy wasn't just an entertainer, he was a friend. To everybody that walked into his showroom, didn't matter if you'd never seen him before, if you'd have been there 20 times. And when you were the first time visitor to his show, he would ask your name, and I guarantee you could come back a year later, he would know your name. That man had a memory like an elephant. He also loved games. We had a weekly game of Uno. Rudy had what he called his Uno shoes. These were my Uno shoes, which is why I wore them, because they're all the colors of the Uno deck. Rudy's looked like something, if Alfred Hitchcock had had an aneurysm in color, that's what his shoes would have looked like. But we played Uno every Tuesday night. It was a potluck with our very dear friend Shirley and Jim. Several of us are here. Bob is here tonight from our Uno group. And I don't know if any of you were aware, but Rudy was really not much of a cook. The sole purpose of his oven was to store pans in it. And the entire time I knew him, I think he may have used that oven in his house maybe 2 or 3 times. And it was always to cook the same thing. And it was a tri-tip roast. It's the only thing he could make, but damn, he knew how to make it. So whenever we had our Uno, he would always say, "Well, I'll bring the entree." And we were, "Do we want tri-tip next week?" Then he would show up instead with a bucket of chicken. The best though was when he brought salad. Now there were only what, seven of us? 6, 7, sometimes 8, rare. Shirley has a small table. Shirley wouldn't let any more than 7 because there's no room at the table. He would say, "Well, I'll bring the salad." And we knew like, oh shit. He'd get the bag of salad. Not 1 bag for 7 people. 2 bags, a can of corn, a can of beans, a bag of croutons. "Well, no, here, I'll just toss it up," with a pound bag of shredded cheese. There was salad for this entire fucking room. "Rudy, bring a loaf of garlic bread." 4 loaves. Bring a loaf. Rudy, this week you're on dessert. Fruit cake, a pie. Oh no. He had to go to Sherman's. Big piece, right? Times 7. Tons of food. Whenever Rudy was involved, you know there was going to be food involved. That's just the way he was. There was no mistaking when he was entering a room. He let everybody know he was there.
Please
Walking.
stop.
Hello, I'm your Rudy, I'm your piano player.
Please stop. Let me tell a story. If you'd let me tell a story.
Absolutely. This is
About
Roger West
Rudy.
again from the Little Shrimp.
Rudy.
He knew Rudy at the beginning of his life. Come up here, Roger. Come up. You're the first one to hire this madman. It's your fault. Tell it.
Rudy and Christine Jorgensen and
Mike, closer.
Turn around.
Pretend you know him.
We had a dinner party, a traveling dinner party years ago, and when Rudy and Christine Jorgensen used to come into the shrimp all the time, and every month somebody would say, "Oh, this is the what we need to do. This is a Mexican, this, whatever." Well, and Rudy and I and everybody went to Christine Jorgensen's house, and Rudy came.
Why are you so afraid of it?
He brought his little salad.
The lesbian did better.
He brought the little salad, and then Christine and everybody brought a passing dish. But the whole trick was Christine Jorgensen. Everybody said, "Oh, well, we need to put your stuff in your oven, right?" Well, Christine Jorgensen's oven, you had to put a chair up against the oven to make it work. And there it was. So here's Rudy bringing his salad, and here's Christine Jorgensen, and here's all these queens bringing all these fabulous dishes, and the oven didn't fucking work. Thank you very much. I believe it.
Another one of Rudy's best friends was also a man that was instrumental in my personal career. He was my mentor, took me under his wing, showed me things, educated me about a lot in show business, and introduced me to some wonderful people. And he was one of Rudy's best friends, and they worked together all the time, and that was the amazing Mr. Charles Pierce. It was because of Charles that I also met my idol, who was also a very personal friend of Rudy's, Mae West. Rudy knew an amazing array of people, but knowing Charles, and Charles telling me about Rudy before I met Rudy, there was actually a cocktail party that Rudy was supposed to attend that I was at with Charles, and I just want to be very quickly because Charles was pissed at Rudy for not showing up. It actually happened on the East Coast. I had flown to work in New York and did an opening spot, and Charles introduced me to the New York nightlife. And I was very thankful. I was all of 19 years old. And afterwards he said, "Come on, we're going to drive. We're going on a little trip. We're off for the next 2 nights." We went to Toronto because we went to see the show of another famous impersonator, Craig Russell. So Craig says, "Come to my house. Rudy's supposed to be flying in," because Rudy was working somewhere in the area as well. Well, for some reason, Rudy didn't work that particular week. This is before Tom had even met Rudy. Rudy was still single and gallivanting. And so Craig says, "Rudy should be here shortly. Come to my house after the show, and I'm going to cook dinner for all of us." Well, the show ended. It was 10 o'clock at night. So off we go to Craig's house. Anybody that knew Charles drank. Craig drank a lot. He also shot up, he snorted, he smoked. He did all that shit. So we're sitting there talking, we're waiting for Rudy to get there, who never shows. And Charles is getting really drunk and says, God damn it, it's late. I'm starving. When are you going to fix dinner? It's 12:30 in the morning. Craig says, I'll go get the roast out of the freezer. Rudy showed up the next morning. And that was the first time I met Rudy, was with Craig Russell and Charles Pierce. So that was just, every time Rudy's involved, there's some kind of food fiasco. It's just natural. Those wonderful afternoons and evenings we spent with Shirley will hold wonderful memories for me.